I am back. Hey, you, how you doing today? I'm glad to be back to have a nice discussion with you regarding um, mentorship, networking, and the Black community with Mary Tobin today. So I hope you enjoy today's discussion. And here we go. So I'm coming to you today in a different type of format, different background. Obviously, this is my couch. This is my house. I want it to be really comfortable today because I think having this discussion today with Ms. Tobin is something that she brings a lot of fire in her discussions. She brings a lot of good things in her discussions. Yeah, myself and her, we talked a little bit before we even got on to doing this podcast today, and I think she's going to bring a really good vibe and a good feel for the discussion. So I hope you enjoyed today's discussion with me. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Mary Tobin. Hey, what's going on, man? What's going on with you? How you doing?
Listen, surviving 2020. That should be like the name of every uh, TV show, documentary, dissertation, all the things. So I'm surviving 2020 and trying to find the good in it, trying to allow all the tribulations to make me better. But I'm all right. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on here today.
Hey, no problem. You said survive and tribulations. I think, man, we should get like a disability check when 2021 comes. Like, hey, you went through 2020 and you survived. Look,
yes.
From 2021, you don't have to pay taxes simply because of the trauma that 2020 had brought to you. Hey,
listen, man, we're gonna need therapy, vacations, massages. We need to join like I don't know, a spades league. We need all the things to help us just decompress and process all those 2020. So yeah.
Man, they need like a 2020 2021, what's that called? What's that soap that you throw into a tub and it just explodes around?
Oh yeah, the soap bomb.
Yeah. We need a soap bomb that just scrubs all that nasty 2020 off of us.
Yeah.
But more than anything, it's 2020 has kind of slowed down, I think, society for a good. It's a good thing that it's kind of slowed down how much we may have run through things beforehand. It slowed us down to the point where it's allowing us to really think about what we're living, how we're surviving. I always had this thing where I said people live in comfortable ignorance. Comfortable ignorance is, hey, I don't have to think about these people that may not look like me, talk like me, be like me. I've got a lot of things that's occupying my time. So, hey, move out of my way. Let me focus on my own trials and tribulations. But 2020 has slowed it down abruptly. And I think, as we were talking before, it was a needed slowdown. It was a needed slowdown. It was a necessary slowdown.
Yeah.
But before we even jump into that, let's talk about who you are and what you bring to the table, and talk to us a little bit about your background, Mary.
Absolutely. I am an unapologetic Georgia peach. I hail from the undisputed king of cities, ATL, Georgia. That means that I am currently depressed about the Falcons yet again, breaking my heart. They don't know how not to break my heart, but I will forever and continue to be an Atlanta Falcons fan. All things Atlanta, lemon pepper wings, sweet tea. I have no idea why sweetened tea exists. I think it's an abomination. But I'm a southern girl and a Georgia peach. I come from humble beginnings, but with a very, very strong mother as my role model and my guide, and a 50-year Baptist for a stepfather who taught me discipline in the ways of the Lord. And so leaving to go to West Point at the age of 17 was life changing for me. But I feel like it was probably the most important decision that I've ever made because it forced me to realize who I really am, and that is a leader. I am a leader. I'm a leader's leader, to be exact. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy inspiring and bringing out the potential in others. And so you can see that throughout my career. So I spent 10 years in the Army as a communications officer, did two tours in Iraq. I grew up really, really fast. As a 23-year-old lieutenant, I was often the only woman, the only Black officer, or both. And so I learned a lot about proving myself, and then a lot about kind of pushing through those myths and stereotypes about me because of my race and my gender, because I did it mostly in combat arms units, so field artillery, combat aviation, a little bit of infantry. So I was never with my signal family. I was always out there tactical units. And I got injured when I was in, and so medically retired, much like
Yeah.
yourself. So at
Yep.
31, I was medically retired and didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was just thrown into like chaos because I
Yep.
thought I was going to be Colin Powell. That's who I wanted to be. So, people have like, Diddy and folks up on their walls. No, I had Colin Powell and like West Point, a picture of West Point people throwing their hats up and like the American flag. Like I really drank the Kool-Aid. And so
Mm.
to be medically retired just crushed me because I
Yeah.
felt like every day I grew up with a mission and a purpose. And now that I was out in Army, I didn't know what my mission and purpose was. But fortunately for me, I got pulled into the federal government, did some work in Okinawa, Japan, supporting tsunami cleanup. And then
Mm.
I came back to the States, worked for HUD for a little bit. The bug of service bit me again, and I became an executive director in some nonprofits. And so between federal government work, my service in the military, my life has been largely as a public servant. And so now
Mm-hmm.
I'm rolling out of a role as an executive director of a nonprofit. And I now am the proud owner and founder of my own consulting firm, Tobin Leadership Consulting. And so I specialize in leadership and organizational consulting, but also diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we know how important that is right now. So needless to say, I have a lot of conversations with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
amazing organizations and leaders who are trying to make changes now. And I'll say this and I'll close like a Baptist preacher. If you believe that diversity, equity, inclusion is an HR issue, you're already wrong and you'll never make
Yeah.
any changes. It is a leadership issue. So that's what I do. I teach and train and develop leaders, and I'm a depressed Falcons fan. So there you have it.
Lord. Hey, I think it's an impressive resume. It's something
Thank you.
that
Thank you.
I'm thinking that you could be a great inspiration to other young women, not just young women of color, but young women, period.
Yeah.
Where, typically we live in a world where if you don't fit a certain mold of what the ideal leader, mentor, teacher or coach it looks like, you typically get overlooked. You typically
Yeah.
are not taken seriously. Have you ever had experiences where you've not been taken seriously, or you've been overlooked, or I don't know. Maybe I'm throwing you a softball question, and I see a smile on your face.
You are one of my favorite quotes, and I'm gonna. This sister's name escapes me, but she was over the NBA Players Union. One of her quotes is, "My past is littered with the bones of men who were foolish enough to underestimate me." That is literally my life. My past is littered with the bones of men who were foolish enough to underestimate me. But then I like to say people who underestimated me. They might have underestimated me because of my southern accent that likes to come out a little bit in my drawl, or if I'm in a majority male environment and I'm a woman, if I'm the only Black person in the room. And I can tell you, one of my roles as chief operations officer, I was a chief operations officer of a city agency for a fairly large city in the South. I was the first Black person and Black woman in that role. And in that role, I happened to be one of the top 5 senior Black women in leadership roles in the city, right? So it was like I came in thinking, hey, I'm just gonna do my job. I'm doing my job. Like I know how to run organizations. I know how to, right the ship. All the things that they were bringing me in to do, and it never occurred to me that I was also a Black woman coming into this role in the Deep South, because I was leaving a role from coming from a role out of Brooklyn, New York, where New York is bustle, 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 grind, get the job done. We don't care what you look like. Now I'm in the Deep South, and what
Yeah.
I look like is everything to everyone that I encountered. And I tell you, it was pretty rough for me making that adjustment, right? So, I'll never forget one of the first meetings that I called. Now, I was a grantor. So I gave out millions of dollars to nonprofits doing work for young people. And I called a meeting with my top grantees, right? So the ones who got my whole checkbook. And we're in there early and we're making coffee. Like people are getting coffee and donuts. I made sure they were set up. And I'm getting coffee last before we get ready to go and start the meeting. And this white gentleman, as I'm making my coffee, comes up to me and says, could you make mine all black with 2 sugars? He thought that I was the secretary or the executive assistant. So I said, oh sure. So I made it for him, and then I asked him any cream, and I did that too. And then I set his cup in front of him as he was sitting at the conference table, and I walked around to the front and sat right in the front chair, and I said, "Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Tobin. We can get this started." I wish you could have seen the blood drain from his face. But for me, it was a moment of ultimate satisfaction. Needless to say,
Why was that
um,
satisfying? Why was that satisfying for you?
because in that moment, it wasn't just, oh, I'm not who you thought I was, right? Because there's nothing wrong with being an executive assistant or secretary. Matter of fact, those people make organizations run. I would have died without my executive assistant in any role. It was the fact that I was in a position of power, and he did not expect me as a Black woman to be in that position of power. And so it was a moment of pride, but it was also a weight, kind of, because then I knew, girl, you better not mess up, right?
What
Like,
do you think was the lesson that he learned there?
I would hope that he learned to check his biases at the door. I mean, I was dressed in, I'm not trying to label drop, but I was dressed in an Armani suit. I mean, I didn't in any intent. I mean, I dressed, and I'll tell you, when I was in those meetings too, I made a point to kind of go a little overboard, to be a little extra with it, because I had been mistaken for the so-called help, if you will. And so in those moments where I know I'm in charge, I try to look and dress the part and speak the part and all those things. And so, I was a little indignant, like, how dare you, and then we're taught good professional practice. You look up, you know, you look up those people that are power players, right? You look them up on LinkedIn, you find out who they are. It said so much to me, like, man, you didn't even bother to look me up. You didn't care about who I was. And then when you walked in, all you saw was another Black face. And now you got to deal with me for the rest of the year, as long as you want this money for your programs. Now I'm not going to be petty, because his program supported hundreds of Black children in that city. But at the same time, every time I engage with you, I know what you thought of me. Now
First impressions is a
yeah.
beast, isn't it?
But now I got to work through my own imposter syndrome. Even though I worked my tail off to get to that role and I earned it, now I'm questioning myself. Like that one encounter has me
Let's
questioning
talk.
20 years.
Let's talk about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. You've got to work through that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
What do you think that comes from, and how did you work through your imposter syndrome over these many years of being an adult? Well, no disrespect.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'll say it. I'm a proud 40-year-old. I am, because I promise you, that first deployment, I didn't think I was coming back. So every year that I live, I celebrate it. And hopefully Black doesn't crack. I think how I have worked through imposter syndrome has actually been largely in part to me working through the systemic inequalities, the racism, the discrimination, all of the oppression that has led to people believing less than of me. And what
Mm.
do I mean? So, for instance, when I first went to West Point, I promise you, if I got paid $5 for every time I heard some white person say to me, the only reason why you got into West Point was because you're black or you're because of affirmative action and the academy was filling some quota. I would be a rich woman. I would have quit the academy and just gone off and been like a tech millionaire because that was literally what I was being told by classmates and people who were there. I heard it from professors. I heard it from different coaches. All the things. No one assumed that I got in on my own merit. They always assumed that I played a sport and I was an athlete, which is why I got in, not because I maintained a 3.8 GPA and I had phenomenal SAT and SAT scores, and I was the battalion commander of my JRTC unit and over my city. No one assumed that. They automatically went to you got in because you slipped through the cracks, somebody made a mistake, or somebody was filling a quota. So even as I progressed through West Point and held senior leadership positions, as I got awards for performance, nothing ever stopped me from believing that maybe I shouldn't be here. But the more I learned about systemic racism and oppression and its long-term impacts, not just on institutions in this country, but our mindsets and the stereotypes and the myths that kind of lead and judge our society. It began to make a little sense. But I'll tell you what was the one thing that changed for me. We say all the time, especially in the Black community, sometimes we're like crabs in a barrel, right? We say that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a good friend of mine, my male best friend, who goes, we're always saying crabs in a barrel. Why do we focus on the crabs when we should be focusing on the barrel? And I take that one. It is the barrel that creates this myth or this false sense of competition and I got to tear you down to win, or there's only so many resources for us to have. So now I got to fight you for it. Literally, and that's where imposter syndrome sets in, because if I'm operating within this barrel, I'm supposed to be in this barrel. But the minute I climb out the barrel, now I'm in another barrel or an environment that has no barrels. Now it's like, oh, you don't belong here. You belong there. Instead of now I'm fighting with my brothers and sisters over whether or not I should be in the barrel or not. And I'm fighting my own internal stuff when I should actually be fighting the barrel and those who made the barrel and those who forced us in it. So I feel like me directing my insecurities and redirecting that energy towards, okay, why do I feel this way? And how can I change that narrative for myself? Right? Because it was no one else that was doing that to me. It was literally me internalizing that I wasn't good enough. And so every time, even now, I sit in executive seats. I'm here with you. You're treating me like a subject matter expert. I promise you, brother, 20 minutes before I came on here, I'm trying to hype myself up and make myself believe that I deserve to be in these spaces, that I deserve to be speaking about these things. But that's my internal work that I have to do because my resume speaks for itself. So, but I have to confront that. I got to keep pushing myself. I got to keep punch myself in the chest every time I do that.
Let me ask, and this could go with, I guess, the first of our word topic of our discussion today.
Yeah.
Who are those people that helped you conquer thyself? Who were those mentors? Who were those significant folks that helped you kind of get past this sort of mental handcuff that you keep putting yourself into?
Yeah. So, I look at mentorship in three components, right? They call it the 3 C's of mentorship, right? So a mentor is a consultant, a counselor, and a cheerleader. And so when I look at the consultants, the counselors, and the cheerleaders in my life, I first of all start with my mother. And my mother was more of a counselor than a consultant or a cheerleader growing up. She literally listen to me in my imposter syndrome. She would listen to my self-talk. If issues of colorism came up, my mother would tell me, she would look at me and grab my face and say, look at your beautiful black skin. Look at the tint of your skin. You're so beautiful, like the darkness of and she would speak life into me. If growing up poor, it's like growing up in the hood, right in the projects, and all I hear is, aka ghetto birds, right? The helicopters looking for whomever committed whatever crime, or I got burglar bars on my windows. My mother would then bring me a book and say, hey, look, there's life beyond what you see here. Like education will take you to all these places that you dream of, right? So I think my mother listened to me growing up and then counteracted any negative talk with nothing but potential and hope, right? But then there was I would call him more like between a consultant and a cheerleader, but Lieutenant Colonel Nicholas J. Burke, aka Stony, this white man with gray hair and stony blue eyes, who was the senior Army instructor for our JRTC program, who convinced me that if I made a 4-year decision to attend West Point, that it would change the rest of my life. And this white gentleman, as my cheerleader, would make me get up and run 5 miles every morning with him. As my cheerleader, he would also make me read the Wall Street Journal and New York Times. And I would have to recite those things to him every single morning in high school. But he also paid for me to take the SAT 5 times. He paid for me to get a tutor when I wasn't hitting the right numbers, and he believed in me. And then I'll say, lastly, I think every soldier, every civilian, any person who has ever chosen to follow me in my leadership position has been a mentor to me, because they either gonna check me when I do or say something, or they're gonna cheer me on and hype me up. Go ahead, boss lady! Like, we knew you could do it. Or they're gonna inspire me to be better by how I treat them, and how I do work for them, and how I do work for the communities that we serve. And so I feel like the people who have chosen to follow me and that I've been honored enough to lead, they have been my greatest mentors as an adult. But without a shadow of a doubt, between my mother and Colonel Burke, those are like the direct ones. But it's been those who I've led, I think, that have had the greatest impacts on me.
Excellent. So before we go into networking and then community, let's go ahead and bring up some of these comments that's already on the right-hand side, so that folks could see that others are participating in our discussion today. So I'm going to say to everyone who's checking out our discussion today, hey, feel free to leave a comment, ask a question. Mary's here, I'm here. We're here to answer your questions and really get this discussion going. So the first one I'd like to bring up, let's see, is one from Mr. Gregory Laughlin saying, hello, Mary. Do you know Gregory Laughlin?
Hi, Greg. How you doing? Yeah, I knew him in Okinawa, Japan.
Excellent. We've got one from my man, Daryl Edwards. He said, that's the theme of the year, surviving 2020. Man, yes. 2020 is like a bad sitcom with a new twist. It's just like, like, stop it already. Someone said, absolutely. Automatic disability if you survive 2020. Ooh-wee. We've got Miss Bonita Taplin. She said, Mary.
How you doing, sis?
She's awesome herself, Bonita.
Yes,
she's very
awesome. Fantastic on
We've got one from Miss Elise Hackstall. She said, hey, just waving her hands.
Hey, sis.
Yeah. I got you. We got one from someone said, not a Baptist preacher closing. All right now. We've got another one saying, for all the people looking into DMT and Grip's Hand, Mary L. Tobin is one of the founders. We're going to talk about your organization soon enough as well. We're going to definitely talk about that. But someone brought up something saying, the crab in the barrel concept, interesting viewpoint. Haven't thought about it in that way before. Interesting. I think it's really interesting how we kind of spoke about, some people may bring up the whole crabs in the barrel thing, and why is there even a barrel in the first place? I think
Right.
I think there was this one gentleman who I spoke to before. He's a West Pointer also. He's the one that kind of opened my mindset as far as the way how I think of things. It was the fence,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
you've seen that thing where you have the
Yeah.
multiple boxes,
Equality versus
and
equity. Yeah.
it's like, why is there a fence there in the first place, anyways? Right?
Right.
And so, man, it's something about you West Pointers with the different mindset, and I celebrate that. Who was that again? The gentleman that was on my thing, forgot it. His name. His name. What is his name? I'm trying to remember his name. He just got pinned Lieutenant Colonel as well. I'll
Oh, we have a
remember. I'll
lot. This
remember.
is Lieutenant Colonel season. Shout out to everybody
Not
who's been.
not Colonel Hamilton. Colonel Hamilton was one, but
Okay.
then it was another gentleman. I remember it. He's a good guy too. But let's talk about networking.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the advantages and the advancements of when you have an awesome network. You just mentioned some folks that helped you and were your cheerleaders and your mentors. But let's talk about the networking side of things and how can a great network really enhance your social well-being and your social uptake. Can you talk to us about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, right? I think sometimes we conflate mentorship, and networking, and they are not the same, right? So mentorship is designed to help you grow and
Mhm.
advance and expand. Networking, literally, if you just think about in a communication sense, it is the act of connecting to others and in the
Mhm.
exchange of data and the growth of your networks from that, right? Your social connections or contacts from that, right? So in a lot of ways, I think, and I'll just talk about us in a Black community, we misuse networking. We use networking to get a mentor, but that's not what networking is. Networking is when I am bringing my skills to the table, you're bringing your skills to the table. We're seeing how our skills align or the data that we have may align, and we exchange that. Or I decide, you know what? I don't have skills that match what you're looking for, but let me
Mhm.
connect you to this person, right? In the networking, in the truest sense of networking, it is not mentorship. I think that's why I am so excited about mentorship programs and mentoring, because mentors are actually really good catalysts for the networking piece. So I am now invested in you becoming better, greater, growing, expanding. So now I'm going to connect you to someone who can't do what I do. Right. And I'll tell you, especially in the Black community, where in the year of our Lord 2020, we are still having firsts in almost every area, right? By mere virtue of the first, that means that there's certain places and spaces that we aren't, or at least we
Yeah.
aren't predominantly, right? So, I like to use this example. Let's say I grew up in a middle class Black neighborhood, and most of the successful, amazing, thriving Black women that I know are RNs, they're nurses. Now, they may be running hospitals and all the things, but I don't know any Black women doctors. And let's say I'm watching TV one day, I see this kid, it touches my heart, he passes from cancer. I go, I want to be a pediatric oncologist. Now,
Mhm.
if I stay, right, if I stay in my barrel, then I'll think, you know what? There's no such thing. I can't be that. All the crabs that I see are nurses. So let me compete for these finite number of nurse positions in my city, and let me compete against all the Black women, because that's what I've seen. But let's say Nurse Brown hears me saying, I want to be a pediatric oncologist, and she works with a pediatric oncologist, Dr. Bill, and she connects me, she networks me to Dr.
Mhm.
Bill. Dr. Bill happens to know a Black woman pediatric oncologist and says, I'm going to connect you with her. And because I believe that she could be an amazing mentor for you. You see how that works? It is.
Mhm.
Dr. Bill realized, I may not be the right guy, not because I can't mentor you, but because she can connect with you a little bit better. So let me make that connection. And I think making that distinction is very, very important, because a lot of times we bring baggage into networking situations. We weigh folks down and we're just like, listen, I mean, I've been quit on by a mentor before. And I've been non-successful in networking situations. And so I know how I show up and what I require in the past has been all because I have distorted or have not understood the purposes of both. Right. So I think
Mm,
that's pretty important to understand.
got you. I got you. You said you've been quitted. That caught my attention. Like, man, how does a mentor quit on? Does a mentor quit on you, or do you quit on a mentor? How does that work?
Well, mentees can quit on their mentors by not being responsive, not being prepared, and then
Mm-hmm.
treating their mentors like they're Dr. Phil or some type of psychologist or therapist. That's not what
Mm-hmm.
your mentor is. A mentor can quit on you when they figure out, you know what? I either don't have the time or the capacity to engage in this growth, this growth connection, or they realize, you know what? My mentee's not listening to anything that I'm saying. They are asking me to do all the work for them, find all the answers for them. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I am not growing as a leader in this mentor mentee relationship, because let's be frank, it is a growth and leadership opportunity both for the mentor and the mentee. And if
Mm-hmm.
both are not growing and learning and becoming better, then that is not a healthy relationship. That's toxic. So what
Mm-hmm.
we see now is a lot of mentors and mentees ghost on each other. They just stop communicating and they just kind of fall off, and you go, you know what, we just kind of grew apart. No, you didn't. It was not a good connection.
Yeah.
Right? And so mentees and mentors also need to be very honest about that. Like, I have mentors in my past that are not my mentors for now.
Mm-hmm.
They are not, use some church language. They are not called to mentor me at this season of my life.
Mm-hmm.
They were back then. They were perfect for me back then. Right now, I need something else. Right. So it's being self-aware too, because I need a mentor that's going to challenge me and push me and not let me get away with my BS. I don't need someone that's going to always, oh, Mary, you did a good, you woke up today, good job.
Show me. What's an example of that where someone challenges you? What's give me an example of that? Because people may hear, I don't want someone to challenge. I may need someone to challenge me. Give me that raw example of what a challenging mentor does.
Yeah, I'll give you one military, one out of the military. I remember field artillery unit that I was in, that came back from Iraq, get thrust into this unit. I'm in a high op tempo. The battalion, the brigade XO is a black guy. He looked like he could crush watermelons with his pinky. West Point grad, so I knew I had a lot to live up to. Other than him, I'm the only black officer in the unit, and I'm the only black woman. I'm the only woman officer in the unit. And I was pretty decent physically. I did all right on pretty much everything. But because I was not at the front of the pack, this lieutenant colonel would literally, after every PT session every day, tell LT, stay behind. We would literally go to the track, the same track where we stopped our run, and he would make me run sprints, like 2 mile sprints with him, push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups every single day without fail. Because for him, he said, Mary, I don't just want you to prove everybody wrong about what a woman could do or what a black officer can do. I want you to be the best officer in this unit. If you want me to be your mentor, because now, mind you, I came to him and said, sir, I want you to help me. Right? He said, if you want to be the best officer in this unit, I don't need anybody questioning you on any level. Now, this man did me the same way. If it was me running a range, if it was me preparing for live fire exercises, I mean, this cat was on me. And folks were just like, Mary, don't you get tired of Lieutenant Colonel riding you like that? But after about 2 or 3 months, my run time's better. I'm stronger. Like, I'm quick. I'm sharp. I mean, so it was him riding me because I asked him to be a mentor and me trusting his process that made me better. But it didn't feel good. People thought I was being treated unfairly. Like, it got to the point when white people start saying, hey, Mary, Are you okay? Right? like, we need to call EO for you. We know he's a black guy and you black, but I mean, that seems unfair. But it was the promise that he made to me to make me better. So I knew what he was doing. And I could have pushed back. No, sir, I'm good. But I am pretty confident that I'm the leader that I am because of him. And then I'll say, like, outside of the military, I think, I had the honor of having a 3-star general mentor me early in my career once I was out of the military. And, he would purposefully make me meet him in one of the, swankiest places in DC. He would make me send him an agenda of the talking points in the specific areas where I needed help or connections. I mean, the level of preparation I had to do to get ready to just have lunch with this guy was, incredible. But the preparation for him is like, and I'll tell you, none of those meetings translated into, like, earth-shattering career progression or anything like that. But it was in having to maintain a relationship with someone that's senior and accomplished, and the level of preparation for him, it made me better as a leader. So now my mentees don't even know. They catch it from me because of him. And I always have an agenda. I'm always on time. You always know what meetings with me are about. I never waste your time. I connect you to the right people instead of talking to me when I can't be of help to you. And that is what that mentor relationship did. And I thought, man, can't we just eat lunch? Like, why do we have to do all this? I actually just want to eat lunch with you today, sir. Like, why I got to go through all this? But he made me a better professional. And that level of professionalism is what has carried over into all of my opportunities. And I do believe that I'm a better leader and professional because of those interactions.
That experience, he enhanced things that were pretty much already in you. He just kind of sharpened it up. He straightened you out and sharpened you up. That's excellent. Let's go ahead and bring up some of the comments that's coming in already. We've got one from Miss, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but I think it's Toshia Spurl.
Yeah, Tasha.
Okay, hi Lula. Okay, gotcha.
That's my middle name. She calling me out in public.
We got one from Miss Tiffany Grant saying that Mary has been unchanged and driven since we met her in 2001. Can't wait to start my business so I can have her bless my employees with her knowledge.
I got you, sis. I got you.
Excellent. Yes, thank you, John, my frat brother. He says Chevy. Yes, Lieutenant Colonel Chevy Cook.
That's right, Chevy, my brother. Yes.
Chevy is awesome.
Yes,
awesome,
he is.
Awesome.
Also in the mentoring space.
We got another comment here saying, speaking of mentoring, we got a question. What are some of your tips that you would recommend for an introvert to succeed?
Right. Yeah. So what's so interesting about being a successful mentor is most of it is listening, creating space for people to express, to be, to question, to understand in ways that no other environment gives you. For instance, and I know we're going to talk about it, but we're starting a mentorship program and Do More Together called Grip Hands. And so I've been engaging with cadets there around what do they need from mentors. And it's so interesting. One of the cadets said to me, ma'am, when you called me, I knew we were going to talk about business, but you spent 15 to 20 minutes just chopping it up with me about my life, how I feel, football games, my mama back home. You let me know who you are as a person, and you allowed me to connect to you. He was like, I need to be able to trust you. And the only way I can trust you is if I feel like I have a connection. He said, he said, so I don't want to tell your mentors what to do, but like allow us to get to know you and allow us to share. Because he said, honestly, ma'am, my family back home, they don't get it. They don't understand what I'm going through, but they want the best for me. And there's people here, and I don't want to lay that on them. So you just created a safe space for me. Mentors, even introverts, you know how to create safe spaces better than most because you listen more than you speak. So create those spaces where people feel open enough and comfortable enough to express themselves. And in the blank spaces and the pauses, find ways to connect by sharing something from your life or something that made you laugh, something that made you think, something that gave you pause, and just kind of build that relationship naturally.
Okay. Just dropping dimes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We've got them. Thank you for the question, by the way. We've got one from our friend, Miss Bonita. She said, I'm very interested in your take on the differences between leadership in the military versus the civilian world. I could join you on this too, if there is one. I'm thinking about my future beyond the military and would like you to say the most challenging thing in your transition. Ooh-wee. So let's talk about can I jump in on this?
Yeah, go for it, brother. You're going to let me drink some water. I want to hear your thoughts.
So the toughest things that I had to deal with in my transitions is, I don't know. I think when I got out in 2014 in Clarksville, Tennessee, there was a good old boys club that even the least qualified of folks still got opportunities and jobs based on I don't know what, but yeah, they had more opportunities presented to them, given to them, and that was a sucky experience, and that's why I ended up kind of upping and leaving from there. Another tough situation is, I've never been the one to say, hey, listen to me because I am your officer or I'm your OIC. Yeah. That's not who I am. I want you to respect me as a person versus respecting the rank and all that different stuff. And that really wasn't that tough a thing, but being in a military town, people kind of expect you to be that way. And that's not who I am. I am a person where I want to get to know the person. I want to have you have a cordial relationship with me, and you work with me as a person you respect versus, using your rank as a means of control, whatever. But that's two things that I could think of at the top of my head. But what about you?
Yeah, it goes along to your point. In the military, when I was a captain, I was basically a god, right? Nobody was questioning me. They just weren't. And so a lot of my authority and my power was inferred by the rank on my chest, right? And so unless I was just a complete, dirtbag, most people were going to listen to me and do what I said. I feel like in a civilian world, boy, you got to earn it. You have to earn people's trust from day one. You have to make those connections. I got to care about your kids, Susie. Jack, I got to remember that your son just got christened last Sunday and that your aunt ruined the spaghetti and the lasagna. Like, I got to remember all of that stuff before I get in your tail about missing my deadline. And that's kind of the mistakes that I made early and often in the transition from military to civilian. And honestly, I still make those mistakes sometimes, because when we're in the fire and I got to get stuff done, I don't have time to be explaining to you all the reasons why we're doing this. But in the civilian world, you must make time for that. So it has actually forced me to be a better leader, right? If I need you to get it done quick, then I got to give you twice as much time to get it done as it took for me to receive and process and put it out there. And so it's made me like a more prepared leader. It's made me a more caring leader. It has made me a more attentive leader. Like, I don't like the old cuddly, touchy-feely like stuff where you potluck, the mixers and stuff. But I have become that person where I'm checking in with people at the beginning of a meeting. How's everybody doing? How's your son, Jack? How's your husband, Susie? How's your partner, Dwayne? Like, I'm doing those things that weren't required of me in the Army, but I think I'm a better leader because of that. I'm a more empathetic leader, and I seek to connect to people just like you would a mentor, right? I seek to connect to you first, and so I would say that that's challenging. Any mistake that I've made, any like roadblocks where I've had to really work through people that I lead, it's come from me. It's come from my lack of connection and empathy. And it's because I took for granted that in the Army, you just did what I said because I was in charge. And it didn't matter if I went to your kid's baptism or if I showed up for, your mom in town. It didn't matter. But it matters in the civilian world. And that's actually what keeps people. We say this all the time. We have a saying, right? People don't leave organizations. They leave leaders.
Yeah.
So if people are leaving your organization, now please understand this. They're leaving a leader. I've seen people work for half the pay, longer hours, because they believed in the mission and they trusted their leader. Be a leader who is worthy of that type of loyalty, but then pay them double what they're worth and make sure that they go home by 5 o'clock.
Ooh, I could think of situations where I don't want to go into
Yeah.
that. Let's not go into that. Yeah, I don't want to drop any of those times. We've got so kind of let's go in, before we go into these last sets of comments and everything, because I think they really connect with the last bit of our topics, and that's connections.
Yeah.
Let's talk about connections. Let's talk about, we've spoken about the mentorship, we've spoken about the networking, but now let's talk about connections. Connection seems more personal. Connection seems more genuine. Connection seems more not as rehearsed, but it's one of those genuine pulling of the heartstrings type of situations. Can you talk to us about what that means to you?
Yeah, as you were describing that, I was thinking about a month or so ago, I was helping a friend move, and we're going to the U-Haul store, and we walk in, and at the counter, there's this young black brother. He's standing there, and he's dealing with, the different personalities of the people who are in there. And I'm noticing how professional he's being in of it all, right? And then by the time I get up to the counter, I'm reading his name tag, and it says owner operator. So like he asked me, how can I help you? I stop in my tracks and I go, wait, hey, young brother, do you own this? You own location? And he goes, yes, ma'am, I do. And I said, how old are you? He's like, I'm 25. And he said, but I do it with two of my other, friends that I grew up with. I said, so 3 black men on this location, right? He said, yes, ma'am. He started smiling. I said, can we just pause here and celebrate how amazing that is? And I said, give me all the cards that you have behind the counter. I'm telling everybody who's in Maryland, drive wherever you need, from wherever you need to come to this location. And then I'm bragging about, like, I literally spent a week bragging to other black men in business, anybody who was moving. If I thought you was going to move, I'm telling you, go to this young brother. Like, he's in Maryland. I don't care what state you're in. I'm bragging on this guy. I said all that to say, when you talk about connections being more genuine and authentic, I mean, stop in the moment when you realize that the person to the left or right, your colleague, your boss, somebody you're working with, your family member, that they're really trying hard at something, or they are succeeding at something, or they have great potential. First, speaking life into that, right? First, like, I acknowledge that you are dope, like, period. Like, there's something special about you, brother. There's something special about you, sister. I acknowledge that first. And then secondly, how can I help you continue to be great in whatever this is? So that's me personally committing to connected, because I connected with whatever that was. That young brother, seeing that man work his way out of the mud with his friends and build this, that connected to me personally. So now I have this vested interest in making sure that he succeeds. And I feel like those connections don't have to be long. They don't have to be short. But when you see something in someone else, especially in the Black community, taking the time to acknowledge that greatness and that potential is everything. Because we hear so many counter messages of negativity, of what we aren't, the bad that we will be, what we're not destined to become. That when we speak life into that, we are immediately counteracting that negativity, right? Right. So we're teaching us not to fight the crabs that are in the barrel, but we are teaching each other in that moment, right? It's not the crabs, it's the barrel. But my words will help you escape the barrel. My words will also help you expand your network. So that's what it is. It's like when I find something and I connect with you, I feed that. I don't let that moment pass by. I pass a card. I say, hey, brother, you on Instagram? Let me find you. Let me share this out with you. That is the connections. That's the networking. And then if he says, oh, I noticed you work in nonprofit. I was thinking about starting a nonprofit for young brothers from my neighborhood. Then I go, let's do it, brother. Let's set something up. Because I believe I can mentor you in that area. So it is all connected. but I believe that it begins with a connection.
It's excellent, absolutely excellent. Wow, having an emotion, it's almost like an emotional vested interest in
Yeah,
seeing someone succeed. Um, I would hope that more of us out there would have that sort of positive, positive will to see others succeed that may not necessarily even look like you. Those that are
yeah,
in power, I would hope that they would want to have a more of an enhanced interest in seeing others who may not necessarily look like them
yeah,
to actually succeed as well. Why? Because a strain on one hand will always cause an issue to those to a power in the other hand. You
yes,
get what I'm saying? The
yes,
haves and the
absolutely,
have-nots. Why should we have a have and have not when you could have both have and haves? But
absolutely,
that's just my mindset regarding
absolutely. Yeah, we're people compete for resources that are infinite.
it.
We believe that they're finite, but that's because we're stuck in the barrel.
Right.
What if you were outside the barrel as a crab and you saw the entire beach and you saw the
Mm-hmm.
ocean and then you saw the land and then you saw the
Mm-hmm.
truck driving away going somewhere else? Then you realize, okay, this is bigger than just what I see. So not only do I have infinite possibility and opportunity,
Yeah.
but if I help the person to my right or my left, like I am not taking away from me, right?
Yes.
This
Yes.
this world doesn't work like that. It's not if I give, we look at this thing like it's a pie and there's only so many slices in the pie. No, there's people making thousands more pies over there. Like you stuck in this pie. But there's several different types of pies that you can like eat from. And I wish that we view life and opportunity and service to others in that way. Like I don't
Yeah.
work without you being your best, Otis. I don't. Like this world is not the best that it can be if you're not being the best that you can be. And that's how
You
I
are
view.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're
So
right.
when so like even, we'll take, do more together, which, controversially, right? We say that we are founded to support Black/African American cadets and Black graduates of West Point. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, all of our allies and supporters of all races, um, all ethnicities, all backgrounds, different orientations, you name it. The cadets, half the cadets that I mentor look nothing like me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, most of them are actually starting to be white men. I love it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're impacting the power base. But that's
Yes.
because they get it too. They get that if we don't figure this stuff out, if all of us aren't better together, then this doesn't work, right? And we're going to continue to have these challenges and these issues. So I just love how you're bringing that together. Like it is a domino effect. Everybody who's in poverty right now, that is impacting us. And I'm not talking about crime and all the stuff that makes headlines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about there is somebody right now, there's a homeless person right now on the street whose gift we need to make this
Mm-hmm.
world better. And as long as we continue to overlook them, step over them, act as if their trial, their condition is not of our concern, then we are losing out on the greatness that this world deserves, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how I look at all of this. Like, how many people can I motivate, train, inspire, and just push out into the world into greatness? Because I need them. I need them to make sure that when I'm 65, this world isn't crap. I need to be living in a dope world, right? So, and I know I went off on a tangent, but that's just really how I look at the world. Yeah,
It's all right. It's all right, man. I got we got a whole lot of different comments. Let's go ahead and post them up
yeah,
real fast. We've got one from Mr. John Williams again. He said, if you can talk about your advocacy for the Proud 16.
yeah,
Spoiler alert, 3 years later, after you stood in the gap for these amazing women, you have our first Black female first captain. Talk to us about that.
yeah. So if everybody remembers or is not familiar, Proud 16 refers to these young ladies in the class of 2016 from West Point who took a
The
celebration
photo.
photo. Yeah,
The photo.
with the fist,
Yes.
with the fist. And this incredible person, white male blogger, and by incredible, I mean the opposite of incredible, decided that holding that fist up in the picture was an act of treason, that it stood for Black power in the anarchist way. And he went so far to get a couple 100,000 people to sign a petition, which forced an army investigation. And if these young ladies would have been found guilty of violating, some sort of act of treason, they could have been expelled from West Point and maybe even having to serve time, right? And so, in response to this photo, I wrote people call it an article, but I basically, school train of thought on Facebook about my experience as a Black woman at West Point, and challenged everyone to think about, if the first thing you thought when you saw Black people hold up a fist was that we wanted to tear the country down and that we were anti whatever American ideals stand for, then I need you to check your biases. Thank goodness they were found not guilty and they graduated, and they are fantastic leaders in the Army. I wish I could. I'm talking about doctors, lawyers, killing it all over the Army. I mean, these women are fantastic. And then, not to mention Simone Askew, who was the first African American woman first captain, who is a Rhodes Scholar and just a fantastic young officer in the Army. I feel like part of me was proud that I could stand in the gap for these young ladies in those moments. The other part of me is asking myself, when will I have to stop defending or justifying Blackness? When do I have to stop fighting for my right to exist? When is it okay for me to breathe and just be Black and be me and be a woman and be a Southern peach, a Georgia peach, and all the things that make me me? And so as a mentor, I have to now stand in that gap as a counselor, a consultant, and a cheerleader. But I want them to one day be mentors that don't have to defend Blackness, but are strictly telling people, look, this is how you become just a kick butt leader, right? This is how you transition to a successful civilian career. I don't want them to have to be saying, listen, when you come into a unit, because you're a Black woman, this is what you're going to be up against. This is what you have to fight for. Like, I want a reality. I'm working for a reality where a mentor can just be a mentor, right? And so I'm very proud of that moment. That's thrust me into, a lot of different opportunities. And I'm now in this D&I space. But I'm tired, brother. I'm tired because I'm not, these women they're fantastic officers without question. And I knew they would be, but I had to fight for their Blackness just so they could get there. And that is what both disappoints me. It breaks my heart about this country that I love, but it drives me. So I'm not going to stop until we're at the place where our young Black brothers and sisters who are graduating from West Point can go out and be looked as amazing officers, not amazing Black officers, And so so thank you, Jay Will, for bringing that up, John, for bringing that up. I haven't talked about that at all since it happened. I try to keep them and that incident out of limelight because they are succeeding. But it is probably one of the most pivotal and critical moments of my life. It was game changing for me as an advocate and as a mentor and, as an activist.
It's tiring.
Yes.
It is so tiring. It is so tiring where, everyday life is already a bustle and a hustle. And now I've got to also factor in, the racist fools out there that may want to vilify my skin color and size and all that difference. It's tiring. I fully agree with that. Black people just want to live normal lives.
We just want to breathe. We just want
to be a regular person. Can I live? But you always got to think of these multiple factors. I guess people have their motivations for why they want to factor in, things like race in regards to how you go about everyday living. It's tiring. It's so tiring. Yeah, we all agree with that. It is so tiring. But Mary, I guess kind of coming to the conclusion of our discussion today, and wow, an hour already flies. and it just flew by, honestly.
It
I
did.
think
It did.
I think these three things that we speak about today, and obviously I'm going to want you to come back on again and talk more on different topics, of course.
Sure.
And I think it's been a good experience, and it's something that everyone should kind of take heed with what you're saying. You know, mentorship, networking, and connections are just really the baseline of how you can move forward in this very, very constantly changing, constantly crazy world that we're living in. And I want my combat patch for 2020, by the way. Maybe we
I'm gonna get us some made, brother.
make some T-shirts with "I survived
Absolutely.
2020." But in closing, do
Absolutely.
you have anything you want to, share with us what you've got going on, groups, mentorship groups that you're in?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, and I guess we could call it a discussion then.
Absolutely. So one, everybody, go vote. See it right here on my shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't figure it out. But go vote. So if you haven't registered, please go vote. Be a poll worker as well if you can and if you're able. So we're voting for our lives this year, right? So let's make
Mm-hmm.
sure that everybody goes out and votes. You know, I'm the proud co-founder of the Do More Together African American Alumni Organization for West Point. We are an official West Point group. We are affiliated. We are also a 501c3, so we're a nonprofit. So every donation you make to our amazing organization, you absolutely can write it off on your taxes. And if you want to learn
Mm-hmm.
more about what we do, you can go to www.domoretogether.org to learn more about what we do. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, IG, all of those amazing things. But in reference to this conversation, we being the over 400, almost 500 member strong organization are in the process of launching our Grip Hands mentorship program. And so we will be mentoring cadets, active duty officers, and those who have transitioned beyond the military into the civilian world. And we're beginning here in November with the cadets. And so we've teamed up with the Cultural Affairs Seminar at West Point to begin to match mentors to mentees. I'll tell you right
Mm-hmm.
now, we do not have enough mentors. We're going to need mentors. And here's the deal. All we need you to do is understand the vision of Do More Together, which is to be the premier alumni organization in the world. And we need you to believe that we can truly do more together. So all races, ethnicities, backgrounds, orientations are welcome. And that's both on the cadet and the mentor side. You do not have to be a veteran or have served in the military. All you have to do is want to love to see the potential of any person that you're connected to expand and flourish. And so that's who we are. We start mentoring these cadets here this fall, which is incredibly needed considering these young people are also under lockdown at the academy, and they can't go very many places. And so, having someone to talk to outside of those gray walls is very important. But even more so, we want to give the world a model for what it looks like to reach back, grip hands with those who are going through a journey that you've experienced, and to see everyone grow in that process. So I would love to see everybody who's listening tonight, doesn't matter if you have any affiliation with the military or West Point, become a grip hands mentor at www.domoretogether.org.
Awesome, awesome, Mary. I really appreciate you coming and talking with me. I appreciate,
Yeah.
we've been Facebook friends for a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that we actually initiated this conversation today.
Yeah.
And I am looking forward to more and more conversations, especially
Absolutely.
when, with the soon to be transition that's occurring. Good news I'm going to be sharing with everyone soon.
Absolutely.
So,
Can't wait. Can't wait, brother.
all right. So, Mary, hang out in the broadcast room. Let's talk a little
Yeah.
bit, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Take it easy, Mary.
You too. Take
Mhm.
care.
All right. And so we had a good experience there talking with Mary Tobin today regarding mentorship, networking, and connections. Take heed with what she said. A lot of good information there. You could always look back at the video again and try to see what, points that you could take, things that you can carry on, things that you can provide, be a mentor, supporting those who may not necessarily look like you, or supporting those that do look like you, that does need that help. And in parting, what I always like saying is take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of others. Bye now.